The latest book by my guest is Planned Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Please welcome back to the program, Gordon Chang. Gordon, what's gotten into President Trump? You've told us many times that every Chinese student basically is required to spy on America and report back to the Chinese government.
Yes, that's right. And it's Article 7 and 14 of the 2017 National Intelligence Law of China that requires every Chinese national and every Chinese entity to spy if they get a demand from a relevant authority. But it's even worse than that, Larry, because in the Communist Party's top-down system, which requires absolute obedience from everybody, it's not just acts of espionage we've got to worry about. It's acts of sabotage and other things. And this is not a theoretical concern because we know that Chinese students have been stealing data in big, large gobs. And they've also been engaging in protests on our soil organized by Chinese consulates and Ministry of State Security agents, and that violates our sovereignty. So this is a serious situation.
And Gordon, I know that President Trump has echoed many of your concerns in the past. Is this all about trying to get a trade deal with China?
You know, I guess that's the case because his president's comments were in connection with trade, so I suppose that's his motivation. But ultimately, we're going to have to ask him about why he's doing this, because this is not putting America first. As Laura Ingraham correctly said, every spot for a Chinese student means one fewer spot for an American. And we know these Chinese students are studying STEM topics, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. That's what Americans should be studying. And they're taking up those spots that Americans should be there. You know, the number one mission, maybe the only mission of an American educational institution is to educate Americans. And we're not doing that.
Gordon, will this be perceived as weakness on the part of the Chinese, making perhaps the invasion of Taiwan more likely?
You know, it is certainly viewed as a weakness of the United States. And we saw this in some Chinese propaganda today from the people who post on X, who are obviously doing it at the direction of the Communist Party's United Front Work Department. And they were saying, look, the United States is dependent on Chinese students. So this makes it more difficult for President Trump to get a trade deal because the Chinese think that they're doing us an enormous favor by sending all these students here, and they're going to try to get some concession from us for that. So President Trump is making it more difficult for himself in terms of a trade deal.
President Trump has also talked about the dependency we have on China for pharmaceuticals. Again, this seems to be completely inconsistent with his whole approach to making us more dependent upon ourselves rather than on China for pharmaceuticals and things like computer chips.
Yeah, well, President Trump deserves a lot of credit because at the end of his first term, he actually tried to deal with the pharmaceutical vulnerability. Now, the implementation of his plan and the conception of the plan were flawed. And, of course, he wasn't reelected, so he didn't get a chance to continue what he was doing. But President Trump knows what to do. And he's under, of course, a lot of pressure. But we've got to move fast because the Chinese regime is in a state of turmoil, and we don't know what the devil they're going to do. And they could lash out, Larry, and we could be in really hot water very fast.
The last time you were here, you told me that Xi apparently was no longer supported by the military, which is the strongest institution in China. Have things deteriorated since the last time you and I have spoken?
They've deteriorated a little bit in the military, but they've deteriorated a lot among civilian officials, and we're hearing all sorts of rumors. And we don't know if those rumors are true, but there's going to be some resolution of that probably in the next few months. So we're going to find out how true these rumors are. But, you know, Larry, there are a lot of signs that are just not consistent with this notion of a stable China.
Right.
So we're going to have to really think about how we deal with China because it's not a country that is able to act in a constructive manner.
Gordon, we have about a minute left. I wanted to ask you about this doctor at University of Wisconsin-Madison who claims that China has overstated the number of people that live in China, its population. Do you believe they've overstated it? If so, why so?
Yeah, it's Yi Fuxin, and he has been working on this for a very long time. What he's done is he's looked at some of the underlying metrics which show, for instance, tuberculosis vaccinations, which is required for every person who's born. there are fewer tuberculosis vaccinations than there are reported births. So this guy's got to be right. And I think part of it is because they realize how serious the demographic problem is, so they've overstated things. But also, I'm sure that Chinese statisticians don't know a lot about what's really happening in the country. You put a lot of factors together, and it shows, I think, that China's been overstating its population by at least 100 million, maybe more.
And again, what would be the motive?
The motive is they know that they got to project that they are a strong nation. And if people think that their demography is falling apart, then that undercuts Xi Jinping's diplomacy, which is based on intimidation. So I think what they're trying to do is to say, we're strong, we can handle this, everything's fine, now bow down and pray to us. And that's, I think, basically the way they're viewing this.
His book is Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon Chang. Gordon Chang, as always, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it, Larry, and stay safe.
You got it.